Hi all, Simon Pimenta here. I often get asked the question, how do I approach physical activity when I haven't got much energy, and I find that if I do too much, then I start to get symptoms and my window of what I can manage is quite small. So I want to share 4 tips, the 4 P's. So the first one is don't push, pace. It's really important that we don't use all our energy up, especially when our energy is low. Dr. Sarah Myhill talks about using 80% of your energy, no more than 80%, and keeping some in reserve. If you have some energy left over, that energy can be used by the body to actually repair the body. If we use up all our energy, it actually takes up a lot of energy just to create a unit of energy. When I was taught graded exercise, the way I was taught it is to maintain my level of activity. So let's say, for example, I was able to walk for 15 minutes. Then I stick to that. I do 15 minutes of activity no matter what. The problem was sometimes my energy was very low, and if I tried to do that amount of physical activity, it would have just made me relapse. So I ignored that advice and I actually just listened to my body. When my body was saying, actually, I can't do 15 minutes today, sometimes I couldn't even do a minute, I would listen to my body and allow my body to repair and recharge. I would maybe do some gentle Qigong just for a minute, and when I felt ready, I would go back to doing 15 minutes. Imagine someone who had flu. It would not be sensible for them to do the same level of activity, let's say going for the gym and doing an intense workout for an hour. That's actually potentially dangerous, okay? So that's the first tip, pace rather than push. So the next tip is to pause when we need to. That means we need to learn to listen to our body. Some people say that they do get signals, but they ignore them. Certainly that's something I would do. Some people say they're not very good at listening to the body. So that's something you have to practice. If you get feedback, your body telling you that what you did is too much, then you have to explore what your current level of ability is. Okay, so it is kind of trial and error, but it's something we have to experiment with. Often people have the achiever pattern. They tend to do too much. If that's your pattern, then the challenge is to do a smaller amount to begin with. Okay, just remember it's temporary, it's not forever. Third point is peace. So when resting, we need to make sure that we are cultivating relaxation. Okay, there are times when I was supposedly resting, but in fact what I was doing is I was not in a state of calm or relaxation. I was creating dis-ease in my body because I was chastising myself, giving myself a hard time for overdoing it. I was working with a client and she recognized that when she was showering, she was rushing and not in a relaxed state. So she used visualization. She practiced visualizing herself showering in a slow, relaxed way. And with time, it meant that when she was showering, she was doing that. As a result of that, she was able to move from being pretty much bedbound and not really leaving her room much, to now being able to go out, walk around the house as much as she wants. She's now able to go out for a walk for about 10 minutes, and she's now starting to think about extending that. So use visualization. There is research that shows that visualizing using our muscles actually makes the muscles stronger. I know that sounds incredible, but there's research that shows that. The fourth P is to take pigeon steps. It's completely fine to start small, okay? Again, if you recognize that you're an achiever, this is something to watch. When I'm working with someone who is an achiever, who's saying, I want to extend my level of activity, I ask them, well, what do you think is a reasonable amount? I remember working with one chap who said, I want to go for a 15-minute run. I said to him, when was the last time you went for a 15-minute run? And he said 2 years ago. So I said to him, how could you approach that in a playful way? And he was a bit puzzled by that question. But eventually we developed an approach that he thought made a lot of sense to him, which was to just walk for 2 minutes, then run for a minute, then walk for another 2 minutes. And if he felt like it, to run for another minute. After this first session I had with him, the next day he came back and said, actually, I did run for 5 minutes, but I did, as you said, I walked for 2 minutes, then ran for a minute. And within a couple of weeks, he was actually running for 15 minutes. And when I spoke to him some months later, he was back to running. But it's really important that we start small rather than overdo it. Okay, we need to break that pattern. It's fine to build up gradually. We don't want to overthink this either. But if we think about this concept of starting small, let's say someone's bedbound, what is some small amount of physical activity they could do? It might be just rotating their hand a couple of times after each meal, doing it the other way. Might be just flexing their arm once after each meal. Okay, and doing the same with their leg, just rotating their foot, lifting their leg 1 inch or a couple of centimeters if you're metric. I met someone who's a practitioner in Chinese medicine a while back, and she was saying that from a Chinese perspective, I might not repeat what she said exactly, but the principle was that we get ill when our flow of blood is constricted. And she was saying just doing really simple things like tapping your arm, going up the underside, tapping around your body, doing the same around your head, tapping your legs. I think she said down the outside of your legs and up the inside. That's just a way of getting the blood to flow. Just doing a little bit of stretching. As I mentioned, sometimes when I was feeling poorly, I would just do some Qigong for 1 minute. I will post that word on this video so you know what I'm talking about. But I found that just doing that for a minute a few times a day, I noticed the difference. It strengthened my body and it helped me get to the point where I was able to deal with activity again. Final point I'd say is that 2 things actually. There is some research that shows that if we do physical activity in small chunks, then that can be better than doing it all in one go. Okay, so for example, I think Dr. Nancy Klimas did some research where if people did 20 minutes of activity on a bike or a treadmill and had symptoms afterwards, if they actually broke that down into 5-minute chunks and had breaks in between, they didn't experience symptoms. So take that principle and apply it to your current situation. And the final point is that just the more we're getting in a relaxed state, then the body can do that important repair work. And the consequence of that is that we often find that we're able to do more over time. So movement is one of the things I talk about when I train people. If you'd like to watch a video where I talk about the 9 pieces I focus on when working with people with ME/CFS, fibromyalgia, then if you're watching on Facebook, comment the word video below and tag me and I'll send you the link to that video. If you're watching on YouTube, click the link below to access that video. If you've got any questions, do get in touch. Thanks for watching. Wishing you great health. Bye for now.